The first time Captain Elias saw her, it was in the crowded alien market on Vera Prime. Bright lights from hundreds of stalls reflected off the wet stone streets, and the smell of roasted spices mixed with the sharp tang of alien oils. He had been scanning the crowd for potential threats, but his eyes stopped on her. She stood near a stall selling starfruit, her silver eyes catching the glow of a neon sign. For a second, she looked directly at him, and he felt a strange pull. Then, without a word, she turned away and melted into the shadows between two tall buildings. Elias frowned. He was no stranger to people avoiding humans, especially here, where Earth's presence was still new and unwelcome to some species, but this was different. She didn't move like someone who was scared, she moved like someone who didn't want him to be seen with her. It was a quiet, deliberate disappearance. Over the next week, he saw her 3 more times, once at the edge of the docking bay, once in a quiet alley near the consulate, and once in the reflection of a shop window. Every time, she left as soon as she noticed him. Every time, her eyes held something between fear and sorrow. On the 4th day, Elias mentioned it to Corin, a local merchant who had been helping him navigate Vera's twisting streets. Corin's expression changed instantly. "You've seen her?" the merchant asked in a low voice. Elias nodded. "Who is she?" he asked. Corin leaned closer, glancing around as if afraid someone might hear. "If she speaks to you, Captain, your fate will change," Corin whispered, "and not for the better." That night, Elias couldn't sleep. The station lights outside his window cast long shadows on the wall. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those silver eyes watching him from the darkness. He told himself it was foolish. He was here on a diplomatic mission, not chasing ghosts in the marketplace. But something about her stayed in his mind, something that felt personal, like a puzzle only he was meant to solve. On the 7th day, he found himself in the market again. The rain was falling softly, turning the stone streets into mirrors. He bought a cup of hot caf from a vendor and stood under the awning, scanning the crowd. And then, there she was, standing by the same fruit stall, the silver in her eyes glowing faintly under the neon. This time, he didn't wait. He started walking toward her, weaving through the crowd. But before he could reach her, she slipped into the narrow space between 2 buildings. Elias followed without thinking. The alley was dark and smelled of damp stone. At the far end, she stopped, her back to the wall. "You can't stand near me," she said softly, her voice trembling. Elias froze. Her voice was unlike anything he had heard, melodic, but carrying a deep sadness. "Why?" he asked, taking a step closer. She shook her head. "They'll kill you too," she whispered. Then she pushed past him, vanishing into the rain before he could speak again. He stood there in the dark alley, the sound of rain hitting metal roofs above. Her words echoed in his mind. They'll kill you too. Who was they, and why did she think being near her would put him in danger? As he walked back to his quarters, a cold wind blew through the streets. The marketplace was quieter now, but every shadow seemed deeper, every sound sharper. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something far larger than himself, something dangerous, something that had been waiting for him long before he arrived on Vera Prime. That night, as he sat in his room staring at the rain-slick streets outside, he caught a reflection in the window. She was there again, standing in the alley across from his building, not moving, just watching. Her silver eyes immered faintly in the dark. When their eyes met, she turned and vanished once more. Elias's jaw tightened. He didn't know who she was or what danger she carried, but he knew one thing: he couldn't. The rain had not stopped since the night Elias saw her watching from across the street. The streets of Vera Prime glistened like liquid glass, each step echoing through narrow corridors of alien stone. He had not told anyone about the reflection in his window, not Corin, not his commanding officer. Something told him that the fewer people who knew, the safer she might be, or maybe the safer he would be. Elias spent the morning moving through the city's lower sectors. It was a maze of tight alleys, covered walkways, and flickering neon signs in languages he barely understood. His eyes scanned every shadow, every movement, and then, in a side street lined with closed shops, he saw her again. She was standing under a cracked awning, raindrops running down her pale skin. Her silver eyes met his, and this time she didn't turn away. He walked toward her slowly. She didn't move. When he stopped a few steps away, he could hear her breathing, soft, controlled, almost too calm. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice low and firm. Elias kept his eyes on hers. "Why do you keep hiding from me?" he asked. Her gaze shifted to the alley mouth as if checking for someone. "Because if they see you near me, they will kill you too, she said. The words hit him harder than he expected. Who are they? He asked. She hesitated, as if the answer itself could summon danger. The Silent Court, she whispered, the name almost lost in the sound of rain. Elias had heard of them in passing, a shadow faction of the Galactic Assembly, whispered about in war stories. No one ever confirmed they existed, but now, standing in the rain with her, the name felt real, it felt dangerous. Before he could speak again, she stepped closer, her voice dropped to almost nothing. If you care about your life, Captain, you'll walk away now, she said. Then she turned sharply and moved down the alley. Her boots splashing in shallow puddles. Elias took a step to follow, but a sudden noise stopped him, a soft click, the kind made by the priming mechanism of an alien rifle. He glanced up and saw them, two figures on the rooftop, their armor matte black, faces hidden behind narrow visors. The barrels of their weapons tracked her as she walked away. Elias's instincts took over. He stepped into the open, shouting, "Hey!" To draw their attention, the rifle barrels shifted toward him. A pulse of blue energy hit the wall inches from his head, sending a shower of sparks into the rain. The street erupted into chaos as nearby civilians scattered. By the time Elias looked back, she was gone. So were the gunmen. Hours later, back at the consulate, Elias sat at his desk. He tried to write his daily report, but his hands kept pausing over the console. Every instinct told him to let this go. He was not here to chase ghosts or get caught in local politics, but the look in her eyes, the way her voice trembled when she said they'd kill him, it would not leave his mind. If the Silent Court was real, and they wanted her dead, then why was she still alive, and why did it seem like she was watching him, not the other way around? The next evening, Elias walked the rain-slick streets again. He didn't have to search long. She found him first, stepping out from the shadow of a half-closed shop. Her hood was pulled low, silver eyes glowing faintly under the dim light. "I told you to stay away," she said. "I don't take orders from someone who disappears every time I see them," Elias replied, her lips pressed into a thin line. "You don't understand," she said. "They're not after me because of what I did." She paused, her eyes flicking over his shoulder. "They're after me because of what I know." Before he could ask, a deep, resonant hum rolled through the street. Elias turned to see a small, hovering drone scanning the area. It stopped, its red eye locking on the two of them. The hum became a sharp whine, the prelude to an alert transmission. She grabbed his arm, pulling him into the nearest alley. They ran, the sound of the drone following overhead. Elias caught glimpses of her face under the hood, the determination there, the urgency. They turned corner after corner until the sound faded. Finally, she stopped, catching her breath. "You have to stop following me," she said again, softer this time. "Not until you tell me why," Elias replied. She hesitated, and for a moment he thought she might speak, but instead she pulled her hood lower and stepped back into the shadows. Her voice was barely audible. "If you keep looking for me, Captain, you'll find more than answers," she said. "You'll find your death." And with that, she was gone into the night, leaving Elias standing in the rain with more questions than ever. The city never truly slept, but there were hours when even Vera Prime seemed to hold its breath. It was during one of these hours, long after midnight, that Elias found himself walking alone. Rain had stopped, leaving the streets wet and quiet, the neon lights reflected in shimmering pools. He told himself he was just out for air, but deep down he knew he was hoping to see her again. Every step took him deeper into the lower district, a place the consulate warned humans to avoid, but warnings meant little now. He needed answers. The alleys were narrow and smelled faintly of oil and damp metal. A faint hum from a broken street lamp echoed through the silence. Elias's boots splashed in shallow puddles as he turned a corner. That's when he saw it, a flicker of movement high above. He looked up to see a small drone, its red eye scanning the rooftops. A moment later, a faint hiss sounded from a nearby doorway. Elias froze. From the darkness, a hand emerged, pale fingers curling in a sharp motion, a signal to come closer. It was her. Her hood was pulled low, but he could see the silver gleam in her eyes. She didn't speak at first, only looked past him into the street. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "They know you're looking for me." Elias's chest tightened. "Who told them?" he asked. She shook her head. "They have ways of finding things out," she said. "And once they know your name, they never forget it." Before he could reply, a shadow moved at the end of the street. 3 figures stepped into view, wearing dark armor with no insignia. Their movements were precise, controlled. Soldiers, the woman's voice sharpened. You can't be here, she said, they'll kill you. But Elias didn't move. Not until you tell me the truth, he said. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a murmur. Years ago, I saved a human fleet from destruction, she said. I betrayed my own people to do it. Her eyes flicked toward the soldiers who were now slowly advancing. They've been hunting me ever since. Elias's mind raced. Then why are they after me? He asked. She looked straight into his eyes. Because they think you're the reason I did it, she said. The word struck him harder than any weapon. He had never met her before these past few days, at least, he thought he hadn't. The soldiers were closer now, their boots splashing in the water. The woman stepped back into the shadows. Walk away, Captain, she said, but Elias's instincts refused. Instead, he reached for the small blaster under his coat. That's when a sharp metallic click echoed, not from his weapon, but from the street above. A fourth figure dropped from the rooftop, landing between Elias and the woman. In one swift motion, the newcomer drew a curved blade, its edge glowing faintly blue. The fight was fast and brutal. Elias ducked as the blade slashed past his face. The woman moved like a ghost, striking with precision. In seconds, two of the soldiers were down, their armor parking from blaster burns. But the last one, the one with the blade, didn't fall. Instead, he spoke in a low, cold voice. The court wants her alive, he said, his helmet turning toward Elias. But you, human, you're not part of the order. Before Elias could react, the woman shoved him aside. A flash of light burst between them, and the alley filled with smoke. By the time it cleared, the soldiers were gone. So was she. Elias stood alone, heart pounding. His ears still rang with the sound of her voice. They think you're the reason I did it. But what could that mean? Why would she risk her life and betray her people for someone she didn't know, unless they had met before? And he simply didn't remember. Back at his quarters, Elias sat in silence, staring out at the rain returning to the streets. He could feel the city pressing in around him. He knew that whatever game the silent court was playing, he was already inside it, and whether he wanted it or not, the woman in the shadows had pulled him into a war that was far from over. The next time Elias saw her, she didn't run. She stood at the far end of a rain-slick street, her hood down, silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim morning light. For the first time, she looked like she was waiting for him. Elias approached slowly, expecting her to vanish like before. Instead, she spoke first, her tone calm but urgent. If you follow me now, you won't be able to return home, she said. He hesitated, the weight of her warning sinking in. I'm already in this, Elias replied. She nodded once, as if she had been expecting that answer. Without another word, she turned and walked into the maze of side streets. Elias followed, the sound of their footsteps blending with the soft patter of rain. They moved deeper into the old quarter of Vera Prime. Here, the streets were narrower, the buildings older. Alien script carved into stone walls marked the remnants of a time before the Galactic Assembly. No crowds, no vendors, only the occasional Shah Dao moving behind shuttered windows. This way, she said, leading him to a half-collapsed archway. Beyond it lay a hidden path winding between crumbling ruins. The air was colder here, filled with the scent of damp stone and metal long forgotten. They descended a set of narrow stairs into an underground corridor lit only by faint blue crystals embedded in the walls. Elias ran his fingers along the carvings, strange symbols and figures that seemed to tell a story. What is this place? He asked. A place even the court fears to enter, she said without looking back. They reached a chamber where the ceiling stretched high into darkness. Ancient machines, silent for centuries, stood like skeletal giants around the edges. In the center was a circular platform covered in the same symbols. This is where it began, she said, her voice softer now. Where I began? Elias frowned. You mean you were born here? He asked. She shook her head. No. I was changed here. Her silver eyes met his, and for the first time he saw something else behind them. A faint glow that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The court doesn't want me dead because of what I've done, she said. They want me dead because of what I can do. Before Elias could ask more, a sharp metallic crack echoed through the chamber. He spun, blaster drawn. From the shadows, armored figures emerged, the silent court's hunters, their visors glowing red in the dim light. There were more of them than Elias could count, their weapons trained on the two of them. You led them here, she said quietly. Not accusing, but resigned. Elias shook his head. They must have tracked us. the first shot came without warning. A beam of blue energy struck the stone wall beside Elias, spraying fragments into the air. He fired back, forcing two hunters into cover. The woman moved faster than he thought possible, her hands weaving. But the hunters kept pressing forward, their numbers overwhelming. Elias took a hit to the shoulder, the impact spinning him to the ground. Through the haze of pain, he saw her step over him, her silver eyes blazing bright now. With a single motion, she sent a wave of force through the chamber. The hunters were thrown back like leaves in the wind, slamming against the walls, but even as they fell, more entered the room. "We can't stay," she said. Grabbing Elias's arm, he staggered to his feet, pain shooting through his side. Together they ran down a narrow passage at the far end of the chamber. The sound of armored boots followed close behind. A shot struck the wall inches from his head, filling the air with dust and sparks. They burst out into the open, the rain pouring harder now. Ahead lay a broken bridge stretching over a deep chasm. "Go," she shouted. Elias ran, his boots slipping on the wet stone. Halfway across, he looked back. She was still on the far side, holding her ground. "Move," he yelled, but she didn't. Instead, she raised her hands again, her silver glow bright enough to light the storm. The hunters stopped at the edge, hesitating as if something unseen held them in place. "Run, Elias," she called. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating her figure against the black sky, and then the bridge began to crumble. Elias made it to the other side just as the center section gave way. The roar of falling stone echoed into the depths below. When the dust cleared, she was gone. Whether she had fallen or escaped, he didn't know. All he knew was that the silent court would not stop now, and neither would he. The storm had passed, but the city felt heavier than before. For 2 days, Elias searched the lower sectors and the ruins, hoping to find her. Every lead ended in silence, every shadow seemed empty. The silent court's hunters were still out there, their presence now more visible, patrols in black armor moving through the streets without fear of being seen. It was clear they believed she was still on Vera Prime, and Elias suspected they were right. On the third night, he followed a trail of information from a reluctant dockworker. The man claimed he saw a woman matching her description heading into the western canyons. Elias took a small hover skiff out of the city, the glow of the skyline fading behind him. The air grew colder as he moved deeper into the rocky landscape. Finally, he spotted a narrow opening in the canyon wall, half hidden by jagged stone. Inside, the passage led to a dimly lit cave. Faint blue light reflected off the walls, and a small fire burned at the center. She was there, sitting near the flames, her hood resting on the ground beside her. For the first time, she didn't flinch when she saw him. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. Elias stepped closer. "I've been shot at, hunted, and chased through ruins for you," he said. "You're going to tell me the truth now?" Her eyes lowered for a moment before she met his gaze again. "You think I was hiding from you," she began, "but I wasn't." Elias frowned. "What does that mean?" he asked. "I was hiding you from them," she said, her voice steady. The fire crackled in the silence between them. She continued, 6 years ago, the silent court uncovered something in the archives of the First Assembly, a prophecy," she said. "It spoke of a human who would bring the fall of the court, not through war, but by uniting worlds they had kept divided for centuries." Elias shook his head. "I'm not that person," he said. Her silver eyes held his. "Yes, you are," he laughed once, but it was humorless. "I'm just a captain assigned to a diplomatic post," he said. She leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. "You are the reason I betrayed my own people." He said, "I saw your name in the prophecy's records before we ever met. That's why I saved the human fleet, because one of the ships carried you." Elias felt the cave close in around him. The idea was absurd, but the way she spoke left no room for doubt. "You could have told me this sooner," he said. Her expression darkened. "If you had known, you would have been dead by now," she said. "The court has been looking for you since before you knew they existed. I had to keep you away from them, even if it meant you thought I was avoiding you." Before Elias could respond, the cave trembled. Deep rumble rolled through the stone walls, followed by the sharp whine of incoming hovercraft engines. Her head snapped toward the entrance. "They found us," she said. In an instant, she was on her feet, pulling a compact weapon from her cloak. Elias drew his blaster, his pulse quickening. "How many?" he asked. "Too many," she replied. The first explosion blew the outer rocks apart, sending a cloud of dust into the cave. Through the haze, Elias saw black armored figures moving in, weapons ready. The woman moved with precision, firing short bursts that forced the hunters into cover. Elias covered her flank, picking off two that tried to rush the entrance, but more kept coming, their numbers overwhelming. "They're not here to capture me this time," she said, her tone grim. "They're here to kill you." The word sent a chill down his spine. He fired again, forcing a hunter back. "Then we get out of here," he said. She shook her head. "There's only one way. And it's not through the front." She led him to the far side of the cave where a narrow tunnel disappeared into darkness. "It leads to the old riverbeds," she said. "They won't follow us there. At least not quickly." They slipped into the tunnel as another explosion shook the cave. The walls groaned, dust falling from above. Elias kept his eyes on the faint blue glow of her eyes ahead. He still didn't know if the prophecy was real, but the way the silent court was hunting him now, he was starting to believe. The tunnels beneath the canyon twisted for miles. Elias and the woman moved quickly, their footsteps echoing against the wet stone. Every turn felt like it could lead to safety or straight into another trap. The blue glow from her eyes was the only light, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. When they finally emerged, they were far from the city. The sky above was dark with storm clouds, but the air was fresh. A small outpost stood in the valley below, hidden between jagged cliffs. "This is where we start fighting back," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a weight behind it, a decision already made. Inside the outpost, alien consoles hummed quietly. Several figures looked up as they entered, different species, all with the same wary eyes. "These are the ones who've lost someone to the silent court," she explained. "They've been waiting for a chance to strike." Elias was introduced to a tall insectoid named Var, who handled communications, a reptilian medic named Shess, who had patched up too many wounds from court assassins, and a wiry human engineer named Rin, who immediately started checking the burn mark on Elias's shoulder from the cave battle. It was a strange alliance, but they all had one thing in common. They wanted the court exposed. "They control the galaxy through fear and silence," Var said, his mandibles clicking. "If we speak out alone, we vanish. But if we speak out together," Elias began. "They can't silence everyone," Rin finished. The woman stepped forward, placing a small black device on the table. "This contains every record I've stolen from the court," she said, "names of agents, proof of their crimes, orders signed by their leaders." Elias stared at it, knowing that what sat on the table could start a war, or end one. "We'll need a secure channel," Var said, "and the right audience," Elias added, "the assembly." The woman said firmly, "They're the only ones who can rally the worlds against the court." The plan came together fast. They would break into a secure comm relay station. From there, they could broadcast the evidence directly into the assembly's live session. It wouldn't just expose the court, it would force every world to take a side. That night, under a moonless sky, they moved toward the relay station. Elias led the way with Rin guiding them through service tunnels. The woman stayed close, her eyes scanning the shadows for movement. When they reached the control room, Var began uploading the files. A progress bar crawled across the screen, each second feeling longer than the last. Then the alarms began, red lights flared, and the sound of boots echoed in the hall. "They're here," Shess hissed, grabbing his weapon. The hunters stormed the control room, black armor gleaming in the emergency light. Blaster fire lit the air as Elias and the others took cover. The woman moved like flowing water, her silver glow flashing as she deflected incoming shots. The upload reached 70%. Elias ducked behind a console, firing at two hunters closing in on Var. One fell, the other retreated, but more poured in through the side doors, their numbers endless. "We can't hold them," Rin shouted. "We don't have to," the woman replied. "We just have to buy the upload enough time." Elias felt a blast of heat as a pulse grenade detonated nearby. The shockwave rattled his bones, but he stayed on his feet. The woman stepped forward, raising both hands. A wave of shimmering force burst from her, throwing the hunters back into the walls. The upload hit 99%, then the screen flashed green, transmission complete. The woman turned to Elias. "It's done," she said, but her expression didn't soften. "They won't stop now. They'll come harder than ever." As if to prove her words, a deep mechanical hum filled the air. Elias looked through the shattered window and saw it, a massive black warship descending from the clouds. "We have to g." "Oh," Rin shouted. They ran from the control room as the building shook under the warship's landing thrusters. Outside, the valley lit up with searchlights and the roar of engines. Elias didn't look back. The court knew they had been exposed, and now, the galaxy would know too. The valley was burning, searchlights cut through the smoke, and the roar of the silent court's warship filled the night. Elias and the woman ran through the jagged canyon, the others close behind. Every step shook with the force of explosions as the warship targeted the outpost they had just left. "They're not chasing the others," Elias said between breaths. "They're chasing us." She didn't answer, but he could see it in her eyes. The court had stopped hiding. This was no longer about silencing her. This was about erasing him from the galaxy. Blaster fire rained down from the cliffs, forcing them into the cover of a narrow pass. Var and Shess stayed behind to hold off the pursuing hunters. "Go!" Var shouted, "We'll buy you time." Elias wanted to argue, but the woman pulled him forward. "Don't waste their sacrifice," she said. The pass opened into a plateau high above the valley. The warship loomed overhead, its shadow covering the ground. Dozens of hunters dropped from its side hatches, surrounding them in a tightening circle. There was no cover, nowhere to run. Elias raised his blaster, but he knew it wouldn't matter. This many enemies would cut them down in seconds. Then the leader of the hunters stepped forward. His armor was blacker than the rest, marked with a crest of silver lines. He removed his helmet, revealing cold gray skin and eyes like molten gold. "The court thanks you for making this easy," he said. His gaze moved from Elias to the woman, "and for delivering the traitor who thought she could save a human." The woman stepped in front of Elias. "You've lost," she said, her voice calm but sharp. "The galaxy knows who you are now." The leader's smile was slow. "They won't believe it for long," he said, "not when you're both dead." Elias tightened his grip on his weapon, ready to fire, but the woman's hand touched his arm, stopping him. Her silver eyes locked on his. "This is why I kept hiding from you," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "If they knew you were the one in the prophecy, they'd destroy Earth before you could act." The words hit him harder than any blast. "You risked your life for me," he said quietly. "Every day," she replied. "Because the prophecy wasn't about me at all. It was about you." The hunters moved in, weapons rising. The woman's silver glow flared brighter, spreading across her skin like liquid light. Elias realized what she was about to do. "No," he said. "You can't." "I can," she said, "and I will." The ground shook as her power burst outward, a wave of pure energy knocking the hunters back. Their weapons shattered, their armor cracked under the force. The leader tried to stand, but the light from her eyes grew too bright to face. The warship's engines faltered as the shockwave hit it, sending it tilting to one side. Elias shielded his eyes until the light faded. When he looked again, the hunters were gone, scattered across the plateau, unconscious or worse. The warship was drifting, smoke pouring from its engines, but she was on her knees, her glow fading fast. He dropped beside her, catching her before she could fall. "You saved me," he said, her lips curved into the faintest smile. "I didn't just save you," she whispered. "I saved what you're going to do." Elias felt her grip weaken. "You can't leave now," he said. "The galaxy needs you." She shook her head. "They need you, Elias," she said. "Unite them, finish what I started." Her eyes closed, the silver light fading completely. Elias held her for a moment longer, the sound of the warship's wreck echoing in the distance. When he finally stood, the survivors from the outpost were a riv. Var's voice carried across the plateau. "The transmission worked. Systems all over the galaxy are calling for the court's arrest." Elias looked up at the stars. The galaxy was changing. The silent court's shadow was breaking, but the cost had been heavy. He turned back toward the valley, the wind carrying the scent of rain and smoke. "She kept hiding from me," he thought, "not because she feared me, but because she feared losing me." And now, with her gone, he had only one choice: to make sure her sacrifice meant something, to become the man the prophecy had promised, to lead a galaxy no longer ruled by silence.